وهم بإحسان يوم الدين أما بعد. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت، ومن كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليكرم جاره، ومن كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليكرم ضيفه. رواه البخاري ومسلم. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inshallah, today we will be carrying on with our series of Imam Nawawi Rahmatullah Alayhi's 40 Hadith, and today we will be speaking about Hadith number 15. A very interesting Hadith, because this Hadith is called from the etiquettes or from the speciality of Iman, from the beauty of Iman. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in this Hadith says, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawm al-akhir," whoever believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and believes in the day judgment. Now, before we go into the main part of the Hadith, just as a side note, why do we have here, why does Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says two things? Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawm al-akhir, whoever believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in the day of judgment. If you look at the articles of Iman, آمنت بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر والقدر خيره وشره من الله. الباقي بعد الموت. These are six. There are 6 articles of faith. But how come Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this hadith, why did he mention these 2? Why 2 and why these 2? And the reason behind this, at the time Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with the deen of Islam to the people of Makkah, the people of Makkah, they understood the concept of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? They understood the concept of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because the people of Makkah, they were mushriks. They believed in Allah. But with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they believed in other gods as well. And they had different gods for different things. So they had the gods that they would make in the morning, and the travel side gods, and this god. As Umar thought, he once said that there was a man who was traveling. He was traveling, and when he stopped, he noticed that he had no God to worship. He didn't bring an idol. So he looked into his bag, and he was going through his bag. What do I have? What do I have? And he found a date. And he set the date up, and then he began to do such as the date. He began to worship the date. He takes the date, he puts it back to his new God. He takes his date, puts it back, and then he begins to travel. And after some time, he gets hungry. So he opens his bag again. What do I have to eat? He takes his date. So he ate the date. Right? He just worshipped the date. He just called his date his ma'bud. Right? Or even if he says a representative of his ma'bud, then he worshipped it. So the people of Makkah, they were mushriks. They believed in Allah, but along with believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they would believe in other idols as well. So believing in Allah, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought the message of Islam, believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that was no problem. They already believed in Allah. Then believing that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the final messenger, that wasn't a problem as well. Why? Because they lived in Makkah. They believed in Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam and Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam, who constructed the Kaaba. And they believed that they were prophets. But the one problem that they had was believing in the Day of Judgment. Why? Because Day of Judgment is also known as Yawm al-Hisab. Right? Yawm al-Hisab. That the day that you repay, that you'll be repaid for whatever you do. You'll be held accountable. The very famous saying as Ali was on, al-yawm فإن اليوم عمل ولا حساب وغدا حساب ولا عمل. He said that today there is actions and there is no accountability. Nobody can stop you, and even if they stop you, so what? But in the hereafter, there's only accountability and there's no action. If you say, oh Allah, let me say one Subhanallah, too bad. Let me say one Allah Akbar, too late. Let me say one Alhamdulillah. You had enough time in the dunya. Now there's no amal, and now there's only hisab. Right? So in the Day of Judgment, the reason why the people of Makkah Mukarramah, they had a hard time swallowing the pill of the Day of Judgment is because they would have to stop the corrupt acts that they used to do. And the people of Makkah, they would cheat, they would steal money, they would very famous. A person came into Makkah Mukarramah, he was doing business with As bin Wa'il, a man by the name of As bin Wa'il, and As bin Wa'il says to him, like, give me all of your goods and I'll pay you tomorrow. Right? Come to me tomorrow and Give me all of you. I'll buy everything you have. I'll pay you tomorrow. This man comes the next day, asks me money, goes, what payment? I don't owe you anything. Get out of here. And he took everything. And then when this man, he went to the other people in Makkah, he said, that's your problem. Why are you getting us involved? So the corrupt way that they had, this was a norm in the people of Makkah. And if they believed in the Day of Judgment, that means they would be questioned about these acts. And so, believing in the Day of Judgment, you would have to change your actions accordingly. And this is why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions these two. Man kana yu'min billah. If you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then remember, He is Sami, He is Basir. That fix your acts. Why? Because He can see you and He can hear you. And then also, if you believe in the Day of Judgment, why? Because on the Day of Judgment, you'll be resurrected and you'll be questioned about the acts that you do. If you do good, then you receive good. If you do bad, then you receive bad. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, فَلْيَكُنْ خَيْرًا أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ. Very, very simple, basic concept, that whoever believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Day of Judgment, then he should speak good or remain quiet. Right? And we went through the sins of the tongue previously. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, just inshallah, mentioning couple of hadiths, couple of different hadiths. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, by Anas bin Malik, he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, your iman will not be complete, our iman in our hearts will not be complete until our heart is set. Iman will not be complete until our heart is set. We have qalbun mutmainna, a content heart. And your heart will not be content until your tongue is not content. Once your tongue is set, and you no longer speak evil, and you no longer say harmful things. A lot of people, they don't say evil, but their tongue is like a scissor. Extremely sharp. And it will cut through anything. We may mention this before, that sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt. This is absolutely rubbish. Why? Because the wounds that the tongue gives, you cannot find any medicine for that. There is no healing from those wounds. Right? So a person, not only should they refrain from saying haram, but they should also refrain from saying hurtful things. Right? Just a tone of talking. Right? A pleasant tone, a peaceful tone. Right? The word that you use. Some people are naturally harsh in the way that they speak. Right? But you see, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam teaches us to be pleasant in the way that we speak. And this is man kana فَلْيَكُنْ خَيْرًا أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ. If you can't say anything good, then remain quiet. And we had the 8th grade students here. They're graduating this coming week. And I had them remember a hadith. And the hadith was, the second part of the hadith, the main part, they said that saying something good is better than being quiet. And being quiet is better than saying something bad. Hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. If you can say something good, then say it, it's better than being quiet. But if you can only say something bad, then just keep quiet. Right? Another hadith of Anas bin Malik says that a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will not reach the essence, the fact of Iman, until he doesn't treasure his tongue. We can't find the main part, the essence of Iman, until we don't treasure our tongue. A treasure that you have. You keep it safe, locked away. You don't keep it open, you're not always using them. You treasure it and you keep it away. Likewise, our tongues that we have. When a person is using it openly and frequently and is talking, right, they won't reach the essence of Iman. As Umar he says, he says that whoever talks a lot, when a person talks a lot, they become tough in nature. They become strong and tough in nature. When a person talks a lot, he becomes strong and tough in nature. And when a person becomes tough in nature, he then begins to sin a lot. His gunas, they increase. And then Ramadan says that when a person sins a lot, then there is no better place for him than Jahannam. But where does it all lead from? From his tongue. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, another thing, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that هَلْ يَقُبُّ النَّاسِ عَلَى مَنَاخِرِهِمْ that will people not be thrown in the fire of Jahannam by their foreheads? They'll be grabbed by the foreheads and they'll be thrown in the fire of Jahannam because of what? Because of the seed that the plantation that their tongues have planted. Of the word that they've said, because of this, they'll be thrown into the fire of Jahannam. As Ibn Umar says that don't say a lot, don't speak a lot without remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whenever you speak, then remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you speak. Because when you speak without remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this will lead to your heart to become hard. Our hearts, they harden. A person who has a hard heart, mercy leaves his heart. You speak of soft heart. Something happens and the person melts. You see someone in trouble, he melts. You hear somebody about some difficulty, he melts. A person with a hard heart, they hear about a bone marrow something happening or someone's in trouble, it's not my fault. Right? But a person with a soft heart, he's very easily affected. He's very easily moved. Right? So as Ibn Umar says, when you speak, remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because when you continuously speak without remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this will then cause your heart to harden. And then he carries on by saying, and the person that is furthest away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one with the most hardest heart. When your hearts become hard, you slowly move away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because Raham, mercy is where the heart, it lies inside the heart. And when we no longer have Raham, we no longer search for Raham. When you no longer have mercy inside of you, you no longer need mercy. And when you no longer need mercy, you no longer look for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When a person he himself is merciful, when he himself is forgiving, he wants to be forgiven by others as well. And he wants to be forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you want to be forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you search for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you wake up in the middle of the night looking for Allah. And you take time out of your busy schedule, your life, the dunya that you have, to look for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this all goes back to the tongue. When you speak, you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in there. Now, from the etiquette of speaking, there are etiquettes of speaking. When a person speaks, he should say something that is beneficial. Whenever you speak, you should say something that is beneficial. And along with this, you should stay away from anything haram that you speak. And this includes backbiting, lying, cheating, just foul language, right? Harmful language. And then another etiquette of speaking is, as we mentioned before, not to talk a lot, right? To cut down the amount that person talks. And again, this goes with the saying as Umar was on. The next part of this hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, وَمَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلْيُكْرِمْ جَارَهُ. And whoever believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the final day, then he should respect his neighbor. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, he kept reinforcing and putting so much pressure about taking care of the neighbors until I thought that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would reveal the verses of giving the neighbors some inheritance when we die. Right? Allah subhanahu in the Quran, He has a certain verse, يُوثِيكُمُ fi awladikum. Allah subhanahu, there's a whole verse that tells us about our inheritance. When we die, who's going to get what percentage of our wealth? And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Jibreel, he kept reinforcing, take care of your neighbors, take care of your neighbors, take care of your neighbors, until I thought that when we die, we have to give something to our neighbors as well. That's how much Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was being ordered to the rights of the neighbors. Right? And then Hadith Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, that person has not brought faith in me. The person who does this following act, he hasn't brought iman in me, he doesn't believe in me. And what is that? Who goes to sleep full. Who goes to sleep full, his stomach is full. Whereas he knows his neighbor is hungry. He knows his neighbor is hungry and he goes to sleep full. As Aisha thought in one hadith, she says that you shouldn't shy away from giving something to your neighbor. Right? You shouldn't shy away from giving to your neighbor, even if it is the hooves of a goat. There's a goat, there's some very meaty parts, but the head, the hooves, these are parts that are very little meat. So don't shy away, but give to your neighbor. Give to your neighbor. We commonly, when we speak to our neighbors, we talk about giving food, which of course is something very beautiful. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, habit of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But there are also other etiquettes of the neighbor. Okay? The other etiquette of a neighbor is to respect their privacy. Ramadan month is going to come, and you'll see neighbors giving food, and alhamdulillah, it's a very beautiful feeling. Right? It shows a Muslim community within ourselves. But another aspect that we have to keep in mind, that we should respect our neighbor's privacy. Okay? And this is something that as a Muslim community, we really lack. We lack in this the most. I remember I used to live somewhere, and I came home during lunch break. Right? Lunch break, usually somebody comes home for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. This is a very brief time. I came home during lunch break, and in that much time, my neighbor came to my house. And I thought to myself, how did he know I was here for lunch break? And then I understood the next day I came, I looked, the line was just a little bit open. Right? Peeking into somebody's house. Right? Spying on somebody. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one time a companion, he was glancing through a hole in the door of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam took something and he was about to poke the companion. Right? Why? Because you're invading someone's privacy. So Islam understands privacy. That person, when he's in his house, he's relaxed, he's comfortable. The clothes that he wears outside, he probably won't wear those clothes inside. And why does he go outside? Why do people go outside and they prepare themselves to go outside? Why? Because this is how he wants to portray himself. And inside the house, we portray ourselves differently. Why? Because up there, it's our people, it's our family. We don't need to put on extra stuff. It's our family. We're comfortable with one another. But when a person, as neighbors, we're looking into other person's house. What are they doing? People, when they drive by your house, they probably look inside the TV on. What are they watching? Oh, they're watching a South Mahu drama. Right? They're watching so and so thing. They're watching so and so thing. This is invading your neighbor's privacy. Right? And this comes with, if you live in Lincolnwood, let's say you're two close classmates, right? You're two close classmates, you both live in Lincolnwood, and you're commonly just looking inside into the house. Is she there? Is she there? Again, Islam, it teaches against this. It's not only about giving food, but it's also respecting one another's privacy. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we made mention of the story at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that one Sahabi, he had the head of a goat, and he gave it to his neighbor, and he gave it to his neighbor, until it came finally back to his own house. Abdullah bin Mubarak, his neighbor, who was Yahudi. His neighbor was Yahudi, was selling his house. I probably made mention of this before. That his neighbor was Yahudi, he was selling his house, and he set the price of his house double the market value. Right? So let's say the market value in that neighborhood, let's say they're 5,000 dinars. And this Yahudi, he set the price of his house for 10,000 dinars. And when a man came to him and said that, why are you charging double? If you want to sell your house, then charge market value. Why are you charging double? He said, look, I priced the house at market value. 5,000 is for the house. Other houses are for 5,000. My house is for 5,000. But the extra 5,000 I'm charging is because you get to become the neighbor of Abdullah bin Mubarak. Right? Why? Because even though he was Yahudi, even though he wasn't Muslim, he understood what a great neighbor he is. Now, if you look at Muslims, how we are as neighbors. You go into a Muslim neighborhood. I remember when we were in England, a man came to one of our teachers and said that, Ustad, the same house that I have in a different neighborhood is double the market value than my house. Right? My house is half the market value. Why? Because it's a Muslim neighborhood. It's a Muslim neighborhood, and Muslims are known that their lawn will be unkept, their garbage will be out, their cans will be around, The whole thing, Muslims nowadays, we don't take care of our houses, we don't take care of our neighborhood, right? So you see that, in the case of Abdullah bin Mubarak, his neighbor who is not a Muslim, he's charging double the price. Why? Because you're getting such a great neighbor who takes care of you, right? The next part of this hadith, and this is actually the part that we want to speak about. These first two parts we spoke about before. We spoke about speaking good, and we spoke about taking care of it previously. But this last part is where I want to focus on. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir, falyukrim dayfahu." Whoever believes in Allah subhanahu wa taala and believes in the final hour, he should take care of his guest. He should take care of his guest. Now, in this part of the hadith, there are actually two different sides of the coin. One is how to be a guest, and the second is how to be a host. Right? So one is you know how to be a good host, but at the same time, you should know how to be a good guest as well. Now, as a host, in one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that a host, zuyuf is for 3 days. That when a person comes to your house, he's your guest for 3 days, and after the third day, then it's sadaqah on your behalf. And the scholars actually debate that taking care of your guests, is that a right of theirs, or is it a favor that you do upon them? And through this hadith you see that sadaqah starts after the third day, meaning the favor starts after the third day. The first 3 days, that is the right, that you have to take care of your guests. And the scholars they debate that the first day you should actually feed your guests better food than you feed your family. Something special. My kids in India, when guests come to their house, they get really happy. Why? Because acha khana pakega, right? They understand that when guests come, good food's going to come out. But in our house, it's the opposite, right? Which inshallah we'll speak of. So we'll quickly go over some etiquette of being a host. Okay? How to be a host. Number one, a person should welcome his guests, nice warm welcome. Hashash bashash. You genuinely are happy that guests come into your house. We have a saying that the guests, they bring the risk with them. Right? Guests, they bring the risk with them. They're not eating from your risk. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives barakah in your risk because of the guest that comes and stays in your house. Right? So when a guest comes, a person should happily, genuinely welcome them into our houses. Number two, a person should, when a guest comes, they should give the guest their attention. Right? Sometimes what happens is you go to somebody's house and they are in the other room, or they barely come out. Right? At this moment, at this time, the guest won't feel awkward himself. That what am I doing here? But the right way to host somebody is you give that person all of your attention at the time. You give that person all of your attention. You sit with them. You talk with them. They're not only there for chai pani, but they're there for your company. And number two, whatever you can offer. The next step, the next etiquette is whatever you can offer as food, you offer them. Right? In England, we had in England amongst us. I'm half Gujarati, half Malay. So the Gujaratis, they have a saying that whenever guests would come to the house, they would say, "Chai to nahi piwana." So basically, it means that you're not going to drink tea, are you? And instead of asking, "You want tea? Can I bring tea for you?" Like, you're not going to drink tea, are you? And then if he wants to drink tea, he's like, "No, I'm okay." Right? Even if he wants to drink tea, he'll say, "No, I'm fine." Right? So a person, whatever they can offer their guest, they should offer their guest nicely instead of putting the person in a position where they have to refuse food. Another etiquette of being a host is that a person shouldn't lie to turn away guests. That you're at home, but I'm actually busy. I'm going to go out right now, or I have so and so doctor's appointment. I have so and so thing. Right? If you can't host the person, then honestly just let them know, this time doesn't work for me. I'm kind of tired right now. Let's reschedule something instead of deliberately lying. A person should just be upfront with his guests. Another etiquette of being a guest, and this is where our our community, the fridge community, right? The fridge community basically is that we store so much food in our fridge that we run out of space, right? In India, back home, and they very rarely have fridges. So the food is usually very fresh. But in our community, whatever there is, alhamdulillah, it's good that we don't waste food. We put it in the fridge, but people usually empty out their fridges when guests come. Right? Whatever food, kya kharab ho raha hai, right? What's in there that's going bad? Take that out. Take that out. Take that out. Right? But a person should, instead of serving leftover food, right? Again, there's nothing wrong with eating leftover. There's nothing wrong. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with eating leftover in your own home or even as a guest. But as a host, you shouldn't intentionally serve their food. What's going bad? Let me find something that I don't need, right? But a person should give until you give from that which you love yourself. If you prefer to eat yourself, you give that. The mentality should be, if you're eating something new, if you're eating something that you like, let me give my guest some of this, or let me give my neighbor some of this. Not, our mentality is that I don't like this. What should I do with it? It's gonna go waste. Let me give it to my neighbor, right? Or let me give it to the guests. I'll keep it. Whenever some guest comes, we'll feed it to them. But it should be the opposite. That when you like something, then that light bulb should start. That I should give this to my neighbor. So some certain type of cookie or a certain type of pizza that you like. Then at that time you share that with your guests or your neighbors. Another etiquette of, again, we're talking about the society that we live in. If you know that a guest is coming, you should remove any expensive decorations. Right? Sometimes you go to somebody's house that has a really expensive vase or very expensive centerpieces. And when you go to their houses, of course, you go with family and children, and if that vase is knocked over, right, this will cause issues between the guest and the host, right? So the person should prepare for the guest coming. If you know that a guest is coming, then you should prepare for them. And remove anything that might be delicate. Remove anything that might be expensive, that might break, and prepare the house for the person. Right? And another etiquette of taking care of a guest is you take care of all of their needs, right? Their sleeping arrangements, their food arrangements, for them to shower. It shouldn't be that the guest that's staying at your house asks for something, right? The host should be proactive in being the host. Again, whether it's just for a couple of minutes, whether it's for a couple of hours, or whether the guest is there for a couple of days. But a person, when he's hosting somebody, you should make sure that he is mindful of all of their needs. Right? The bathroom is clean, the house is clean, and just taking care of things beforehand before the guest comes. Another etiquette of having a guest is once the guest leaves, not to backbite the guest. Right? And again, this is something that we fall prey to, that we host somebody, but after the person leaves, then we start talking about the person. Yaar, jaane ka naam hi nahi leha. He was glued down. He didn't want to leave. Right? What a bore. Right? He was here for 3 hours. I feel like going to 2 hours. Right? But when a guest leaves, we should refrain from backbiting. Refrain from talking bad about the person. Right? Why? Because visiting other people, this is from the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he used to visit other people. And this guest is actually fulfilling the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then when this guest leaves, you're speaking bad behind his back. No, this is inappropriate. Right? So once the guest leaves, then the person, he should speak. He should speak pleasant about the person. Now, as a guest, what are the rights not the rights, but what are the etiquettes as a guest? So these were some etiquettes as a host. But now, what are the rights? What are the etiquettes as a guest? Number one, a person shouldn't overstay their welcome, right? You know, keep in mind that people have other responsibilities and other duties that they have to take care of. That you go to somebody's house. The first thing when going to somebody's house, it's very important that you make an appointment. Call beforehand. Call beforehand and just let the people know. Unless apas ka mamla hai. If you go to your neighbor's house, even that is nice that you call and let them know. If you just go to the door and to drop something off, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're going to stay at somebody's house for a period of time, whether it's a couple of days or even for a couple of minutes, it is best that you first call them and take an appointment. Are you at home? Is it okay that we come? Are you free? Will it be a problem if we come? Okay, Jazakallah, we'll come some other time. Right? No problem. If they're busy, then inshallah we'll come some other time, we'll set a time. Right? So the first thing, when being a host, you should make an appointment and then come. Why? Because somebody might be in the middle of something and they might not be able to host you at that time. Right? And if they are hosting you, it's very important that you don't overstay your welcome. That you're just there for hours and hours. Why? Because you have nothing better to do. You're bored at home and you think, okay, let me go kill time. Whereas the other person, he has a busy schedule and he is being a good host, but he has other responsibilities and other duties that he's being pushed away, that he's being late for. Right? So as a guest, it's very important that you don't overstay your welcome. The next etiquette, a guest should always take gifts. Right? A guest should always take gifts. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in one hadith, he says, tahadu, that give hadiyah, and this will create love in one another. When you go to somebody's house, the fact that they're hosting you, you take something small for them. Why? Because as a host, they'll feed you or just give you a pleasant stay. And in return for that, you take something little. I'm not saying that you go out and you go buy something. Maybe you have something nice in your house. Maybe it's some fruit. Right? Maybe something small that you can just go and give to them. Right? So as a guest, a person should always take gifts. Right? Instead of going empty-handed, the person should always take gifts. The next thing, if the host gives you something, you should receive it happily. Right? A lot of times, when a guest receives a gift, right? I expected more, right? But whatever the host gives you, whether it's gifts as food, whether it's gifts as an entree gift or an actual gift, whatever the host puts out in front of you, you should receive that happily. Right? If he gives snacks, then happily. We're waiting for biryani, right? He gives snacks and saying that biryani guy. He gives biryani with chai guy. He gives chai with mithai guy. Right? Instead of waiting for more and more and more, like feed me more, whatever the person can present in front of you, be happy with that. I'm taking whatever because why this person is going out of his way for you. Another etiquette as a guest that you shouldn't go to somebody's house just for gifts. Right? That chalo chai pina, whose house should we go? Chai pina whose house should we go? Or you want to eat some sort of snack, you pull out your friends, let's go to his house. His wife cooked good food. Right? But a person should go as a guest, to visit the person. The food and all that's all secondary. But the main reason you should be there is to meet one another. To create that love between one another, the muhabbat of the brotherhood of Islam. The next thing, as a guest, a person should be mindful of the host's family. Right? Not only be mindful of the host, but be mindful of the family. Right? Don't become a burden on the family. Right? The children in the house. That a person, and this is our generation that we're talking about. That you go to a person's house and the family might be sleeping inside, and you're talking out loud and you're laughing. Right? You should be mindful. The next day the kids have school, and you go to somebody's house 9, 10 o'clock at night, and that time they're trying to put their kids to sleep. Right? This will cause somebody to leave. It will cause somebody trouble. It will cause the family trouble. Right? That, the wife is trying to put the kids to sleep and they can hear you laughing from the living room. So a person should be mindful of the family that of the host. Not only that, there are elderly people in the house, and the person should pay respect to them. If you go to somebody's house and their parents live with them, you should go and visit the parents. Go and show some respect to the parents, show some respect to the elders that are in the house that you're going to. The next thing, a person should know or be mindful of the customs of the house. Right? And sometimes you go into a house and they have a no shoe policy. Commonly in our Indo-Pak culture, we have no shoe policy. You take your shoes off. So when you go to somebody's house and they have a custom like that you take your shoes off, or they have a custom that you leave your shoes on, or any other customs, sitting up on the floor, sitting up on the chair, sofa, or sitting down on the ground. If the person asks you to sit down, then you sit down. If the person asks you to take your shoes off, then you take your shoes off. Right? If you go to somebody's house and the custom is that they eat with their hand, then if it's extremely uncomfortable, then yeah, you can ask for a fork or a spoon. But you should try to adopt to the custom of the household. The household that you're going to, you should try to adopt to that custom. And another etiquette of being a guest, you should be, with Islam, Iman is on different levels. People have different levels of Iman. Even our own Iman that we have, sometimes it becomes high, and sometimes our Iman level drops. That we need to recharge our Iman. And it might be possible that you go to somebody's house and your Iman level, mashallah, is very high. And their Iman level is just, maintaining itself. But as a guest, another etiquette as a guest is that you be mindful to the level of other people's Iman. Instead of going into somebody's house and calling every single thing haram, that TV is haram, your food is haram, this is haram, that's haram, right? A person should be mindful. And if they want to give nasiha, there are ways to give nasiha. But instead of calling this person's whole livelihood and everything they have haram, or just calling it out, right? Or enforcing people, right? You go to somebody's house and it's salat time, and then while it's salat time, then you become all Sharia, police officer, right? Now let's make Jama'at, call your family, call your kids, have everybody come. And there's no space, don't make space. Let's move the sofa. Respect the level of Iman that people are on. As a host, as a guest, should respect the people's Iman, the level of Iman. Another etiquette as a guest, you should only go to the house, the parts of the house that are meant for you. Right? If you go to somebody's house and they show you to the guest room, then just stay in the guest room. And if you have to go beyond that, then you ask permission. Right? If they give you a bedroom, then you go to that bedroom. And that's where you keep yourself to a certain bathroom. Instead of wandering around the house and going into all the different rooms and going on, show me your house. Right? And this is a customer that from back home, that ghar dikha, right? And you come in somebody's house and you go to all the rooms. Let me see this room, that room. Maybe somebody's room is unkept, right? They only have enough time to clean up a certain part of the house, and the other rooms are unkept. A person should be mindful. The part of the house that is allocated for you, you only go to that part of the house. Maybe they have family in that other part of the house. Maybe there's something that they don't want you to see, and maybe it's best that you don't see it, right? You go to somebody's house and they have something that they don't want you to see, and it's best that you don't see it. A person shouldn't be, again, we're talking about respecting somebody's privacy and not being nosy, right? Show me this place, show me that place, show me this place, what's behind this door, right? But whatever part of the house that is allocated for you, a person should go to those places only. Another thing, when a person visits somebody else's house, you should keep your gaze lowered down. everybody has family. In every household, we have family, and that's why a house, it becomes a home when there is family in the home. And when you go to somebody's house, again, you might say that who would do something? But trust me, happens. Right? That you call somebody to your house, and their eyes begin to wander around. The eyes, not only to your privacy, but onto the family as well. But as a guest, it's really important that when you go into somebody's house, you lower your gaze. And even knocking on the door, there's a way to knock on the door. And when you knock on the door, I said that Rasulullah, when the guy came, he knocked on the door, and he began to peek inside. Rasulullah poked this guy's eyes. Right? When you knock on the door, you don't start checking the window. Are they there? Are they there? And we have those mirrors on the side. Somebody coming to open the door? Right? Instead of peeking inside the house, even just coming into the house, a person is to stand by the door, where even if the door opens, they don't see inside the house. Right? You maybe face towards the hedges of the door. Instead of facing towards the doorknob, let's say the doorknob's here, face towards the hedges. If the door opens and it's somebody's family opens the door, somebody's wife opens the door, then at least your gaze are lower. So there's even a way of knocking and coming inside the house. Islam teaches us how to even come inside the house. So once you're inside the house, it's really important that a person lowers his gaze inside the house as well. Again, this hadith is narrated by Abu Hurairah. Abu Hurairah, he says, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyakul khayran aw liyasmut." Whoever believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, this hadith is from Jawami al-Kalim. It's from those hadiths where Rasulullah says very little, but there's a very great meaning inside. If you look at the three things that Rasulullah he says in this hadith, one takes care of our code, our saying, and the second two, they take care of our action. So it surrounds both things, the words that we say and the actions that we do. And this is why this hadith is categorized as Jawami al-Kalim. Man kana yu'min billahi wal yawm al-akhir. If you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you believe that He's Sami and Basir, and you believe in the day of judgment, that you've been questioned about your actions, then number one, say good or remain quiet. Keep a hold of your tongue. Right? We mentioned the hadith that a person, he becomes very close to Jannah. That Jannah is just a hand span away. It's just right there for him. But then he says one word. He says one word. That maybe he doesn't even know about the word that he said. He probably didn't even mean it. But Rasulullah says that this word, it moves him far away from Jannah. It moves him far away from Jannah. And he says as the distance from here to Sana'a. From Medina to Sana'a. Thousands of miles away. That one word put a distance like that. And the other side, when a person he becomes very close to Jannah, but he somehow says something that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and just pushes him away from Jahannam. And the second part of this, man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyukrim jarahu. When we spoke about this before, a person should be mindful to his neighbors, be nice to his neighbors, just building a good society, building a good neighborhood, taking care of his part of things around his house, inside of his house. If you have guests over, then maybe keep the volume down at night. Why? Because you might have neighbors. Maybe they have work the next day. If you live in an apartment, you be mindful of the neighbors that are underneath you, that mindful of the neighbors on top of you. If you have a party, keep the volume down. Be mindful of your neighbors. Another thing that we spoke about is respecting your neighbor's privacy. Not looking inside the house. What are they doing? When are they coming? When are they going? Constant watch over them. That you guys are never home. You're always in. You're always out. Everybody has their own lifestyle. Right? Some people are more grounded to the house. Some people are in and out of the house more. But as a neighbor, you shouldn't be monitoring over your neighbors in such a way. And the last part of this, and this is where we focus on, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyukrim ghayrahu." Whoever believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the final hour, he should take care of his guests. To take care of his guests. And we spoke about how to be a good guest, and we spoke about how to be a good host. Right? Very commonly we look at how to be a good host, and we forget about that the guest has etiquette that they need to follow as well. When you go to somebody's house, there are etiquettes. We commonly say that when you go to somebody's house, he didn't take care of me, he didn't give me the attention that I needed. But a person, when he goes as a guest, there are etiquettes to follow as well. Inshallah, next week we'll carry on. Maybe next week will be the last class that we'll have, and then we'll give a break for Ramadan, Tarawih, and the tafsir that the Imam will do. So inshallah, next week we'll do Hadith number 16, and after that, inshallah, we'll give a break. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.